to portray the gender of our choice.
Neil deGrasse Tyson goes beyond what they call woke with his new gender interpretation. He thinks it's weird to segregate sports.
I'm imagining 100 years from now looking back and saying, do you know, back 100 years ago, they split boys and girls and they couldn't compete. And I was like, that'd just be kind of a little weird.
Apparently thinks it's our brain malfunctioning when we categorize things.
It's a failure of the evolution of our brain wiring to require of things in front of us to fit into categories.
And goes much further. We're gonna watch and react to those clips. God bless you guys. Dream Rare Podcast starts now. It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to today's episode of the Dream Rare Podcast. So Neil deGrasse Tyson has gone full gender bender. Apparently the fake scientist, real scientist, spaceman, astrophysicist guy, Neil is now some sort of gender expert, or he's got this fascinating opinion on gender. Let's listen to a few clips because I have three of them. The first one, he says he just thinks it's so weird that men and women compete separately, and in hundreds of years, we'll look back at these times and be like, wasn't that weird?
It is a little weird that we split people by male and female in this way. I'm imagining 100 years from now looking back and saying, do you know, back 100 years ago, they split boys and girls and they couldn't compete. And I was like, that'd just be kind of a little weird.
I don't know, Neil, because
I can imagine thinking how weird that is.
I can imagine that too. But the differences are so massive. On average, again, I've seen the pictures of you as a college wrestler.
Listen to me.
But the average woman is not going to be able to take the average woman wrestler is not going to be able to take down you when you were in your peak. Okay, maybe the
Michael,
best female.
You sound like you're an old man on the porch in a rocking chair right now. I'm telling you. Okay. I'm telling you, you are criticizing something that is in need of modification.
Squeal deGrasse Tyson is so arrogant too. Oh, you're just an old man. Squeal deGrasse Tyson. You know you're lying. I know you're lying. You know that I know that you know you're lying. Something like that. I forget what the old quote is. Like, it's one thing to just go out there and lie and be a propagandist. Maybe his handlers told him that he had to go do the gender tour or whatever. But to talk to people like that, oh, you're just an old man. Suggesting that men wrestlers are stronger on average than women wrestlers. You're just an old man yelling at the porch. He went on to say that he thinks it's some sort of like brain malfunction that we even put things in category. I guess now he's Tim Pool where categories don't exist or whatever. Let's take a watch of these two clips.
It's a failure of the evolution of our brain wiring to require of things in front of us to fit into categories.
Well, go ahead. But he's like a child. He's like a 4-year-old. Dude, I could not stand this guy. If he interviewed me like that, I would not just sit there and take it. I would just be like, bro, you're a clown. I'd tell him to his face. But anyway, he's like, it's a malfunctioning of your brain wiring to put things into categories. Like pattern recognition is a failure to your brain. Let's just forget all categories, right? There's no such thing as numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4. No, that's not evolution and learning how to actually solve problems and count things and, statistically keep, accountability for things in your life, or like colors and trees. Oh no, trees, it's a category. It's just your brain malfunction. Don't even look at a tree different than like a different, everything's the same. There is no category. Just think on the face of it. Forget about gender for a second. If you can be like the left, just forget gender exists. The fact that he's saying that categorizing things is your brain malfunction, we got to run that one back. This is just so fake and so arrogant. And the fact that he interrupts, like he's like, no, let me finish my point. I'm so smart. You're not smart and you're not a real scientist. That's fine.
It's a failure of the evolution of our brain wiring to require of things in front of us to fit into categories.
Go ahead.
It's a failure of the wiring of your brain to put things into categories. Why do you even put the cold stuff that in the freezer? I mean, that's a failure of your brain to identify that the things that you put in the freezer need to be frozen and the things you put in the refrigerator need to be, in a refrigerator. I mean, that's not you being logical and having pattern recognition to realize not everything that you see is exactly the same. You're just a bigot. I mean, just, put the bread on the shelf and put the milk on your head. There's the categories are just crazy. When we go to the supermarket and there's different aisles to productively go down and figure out where the stuff you want is, that's not logical human evolution to, make things easier for the consumer. That's just a failure of your brain. Your brain's failing. There should be no categories at all. Like, it's so crazy. All right. And then he follows up with trying to compare it to like computer programming or quantum physics.
But quantum computing, they use not bits, but qubits. Maybe we are not gender bits. Maybe we are gender qubits.
Do you think he really believes this stuff? Like, I don't know. Here's the last clip of him. I guess he's like a gender propagandist expert now, just going around the media tour talking about gender. Talk about Pluto and make up little fake stories or whatever about how we can't go back or whatever. This is not your expertise, but whatever, everybody has the right to speak on whatever they want. I just don't agree with it.
My point is, apparently the XXXY chromosomes are insufficient because when we wake up in the morning, we exaggerate whatever feature we want to portray the gender of our choice. Either the one you're assigned, the one you choose to be, whatever it is. And so now so now just to tie a bow on this, I say to you, somewhere I think I read that the United States was a land where we have the pursuit of happiness.
Yes.
Suppose no matter my chromosomes, today I feel 80% female, 20% male. I'm gonna put on makeup. I'm gonna do that. Tomorrow I might feel 80% male. I'll remove the makeup and I'll wear a muscle shirt. Why do you care?
Yeah.
What business is it of yours to require that I fulfill your inability to think of gender on a
I mean, I don't think most people did care at all until they started pushing it obsessively in every movie all the time, every brand, and onto children smaller and smaller and smaller. It's like abortion. They're like, we want to abort at 6 weeks, 9 weeks, 12 weeks, mid-birth. And it's like, all right, that's a little weird, dude. I mean, there's a conversation to be had, but you're getting so over the top with it that people for the first time in a while actually do care more because you're pushing it on them. But I mean, I'm trying to stay calm because I can't. I call him sometimes like Neil Tyson Bison, or I have different nicknames for him. Today, I'm going with a Squeal DeGrasse Tyson. Like now, he's just running around media as the scientist, like Shil Nye, the Democratic Party spy guy. That's a joke, by the way. It's a parody name. I don't want to get sued, but you get what I'm saying. Bill Nye. He's like Bill Nye. When we grew up, Bill Nye was like, "There's men and women," and now it's like it's whatever you want it to be. All right, Neil. So you really don't see the difference between sports. You don't know why they would segregate sports. And the guy tried to say to him, he's like, Neil, listen, you did wrestling in high school or college or whatever. You don't know the difference. Like there's a weight class and also just men on average have more strength than women. Like you're going to lie about that too. You don't know that. I have kind of an unpopular opinion on sports because I do think that if a woman's sport can work, then it works. You don't need to subsidize it like the WNBA. But one of those things, I feel like everything's kind of coming full circle. And I feel like we caught on at the end of the slippery slope because it wasn't popular to say before. But now that it's all collapsing, everybody kind of figured it all out. But it's like eventually at a certain point, there was like men's sports, right? And women's sports too. But you had men's sports being more dominant. It made more money in corporations, etc. And then a lot of these sports leagues tried to subsidize women's leagues. Sometimes women's sports do really well, certain women's boxing events, UFC. but sometimes they don't and they're being forced. And then I forget the name of the title, but more money went to men's sports because men's sports made more money for the university, etc. And then at a certain point, there was a court case and they're like, no, we should give 50% to men and 50% to women. That, in my opinion, was already, driving down the slippery slope. So now they're trying to act like all the sports leagues are exactly the same and they need the same funding. And even if they don't make money, it's still fine. And now you have the side where it's like, it doesn't matter at all. This is down the lane. It's like, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's try this. Let's give 50% to men, 50% to women. Let's pretend like we don't even notice that there's a difference at all. Title IX, somebody said it was. Yeah, I didn't look it up, but I know it's one of the titles. So I feel like this was meant to happen. It's like, I'm not trying to take it to the next level, but even with like, if you said, on average, who's better, men at soccer or women at soccer? The truth is the women's soccer team, the best women in the world probably couldn't beat most college men's team. That's just how gender is, the gender that Neil deGrasse doesn't know anything about outside of your feelings or the pursuit of happiness or what you think other adults should do. Just straight up biology of like the average men's college team probably destroys the best women in the world at a professional level, just because there is a difference between the, physical capability on average of gender. Everybody knows that, right? So here's where I'm going to take it to a new controversial level because it's just true. If I said that and I said, do you think that women should be on the front lines of the military, or who would you trust more, a man or a woman to be a police officer to raid? It's not saying that no police women can do that. It's just on average, everybody knows that certain things men are on average going to do better, or faster or stronger. So this applies to every aspect of society, but a lot of times people will be like, well, I just want to talk about this in the kids' schools, or I just want to talk about this in professional sports, but I don't care about it in any other aspect of society. And it's like, I get it. I know you don't care about it in every aspect of society. That's why it got this far. That's why the slippery slope has gotten so far that it gets so crazy that you start paying attention. You're like, I only want to talk about that. Well, too bad. We're talking about other stuff now. And everybody knows that they're overly forcing it. It's not even like it's an equal sort of thing where it's like, well, if you're good enough, you can take that position. Now they're bending over backwards with equity, inclusion, diversity, etc., to like force people into positions where they're not even competing just because they want to fill some sort of quota. But to get back to the video, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. I don't really, go around and police what other adults do. I don't have time to do that. I'm focused on myself. But now you have this scientist who's this like, total propaganda shill, Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's running around just lying to people. Like, you really don't know, Neil? Let's take it on its basis, because they always play this little game where they'll be like, oh, you don't believe in the pursuit of happiness? I thought you were a conservative and now you don't believe in liberty. Let's just take it from the first video I saw. Neil deGrasse Tyson, you don't know the difference between men and women's sports? Really? You don't think there's a difference between men's wrestling and women's wrestling on average? You just want to erase it? I'm actually fine with what he said. It's just going to hurt women's sports. Like if we want to do that and go back to like the 30s and 40s and just like not have women's sports because they're not good enough and it's not as interesting, then let's go back to the free market. Let's stop subsidizing all these leagues and let only the really talented, entertaining women thrive, and all the rest that are basically diversity hires now sucking the money away from the men's leagues. Let's end it. I'm totally fine with that. It's like, if people want to do that, it is what it is. That is kind of free market-ish. But in general, they always act like they're the feminists, right? Like, we love women. We want to protect women. Women are being mistreated. Dude, if you pretend like gender doesn't exist in sports, I'm fine with it. I'm not a female competitor in college or whatever. So it doesn't really affect me. I'm sure a lot of people who are parents of women feel differently. They want their daughter to compete. They want their daughter to have that equal opportunity in college sports. And I, as a father of a daughter that's an athlete, I totally would understand that. But I'm just saying, in general, he's posing as if he's some sort of virtuous, self-righteous. He's such a douchebag. He's so cocky. He thinks he's so smart. It was so good to watch Patrick Bet-David school him, because I would do the same if I interviewed him. He's such a fake. But anyway, it's like, you act like you're helping the LGBTQ plus whatever. Neil deGrasse Tyson, who do you think would suffer the most if you said gendered, let's just go and gender doesn't exist in sports, it's going to be female athletes. They're not going to be able to compete in almost any sport. What sport would they be able to compete in? I'm pretty sure even sports like chess that aren't physical, I believe the last time I checked, the top 100 people were all men. Someone said I'm a bigot. I didn't make that list. I don't know if you're being sarcastic or not. That's the part with all these words. I can't even tell anymore. It's like people will be like, you're this, you're that. I'm like, are you joking or are you actually serious? Like, are you liberal or are you just like delusional? In general, I'm not a hater, but it's like in a free market, if you don't want to acknowledge that gender is different, most women, they're not going to be able to compete in wrestling. They're not going to be able to compete in mixed martial arts. They're not going to be able to compete in surfing. They're not going to be able to compete in basketball. They're not going to be able to compete in soccer. They can't even compete in chess. There's no physical aspect of it. And the top 100 people, last time I checked, are all men. And that's a mental game. You know, are they as good at NASCAR? I know Danica Patrick was in the league, but most weren't. You know, are they good at skeet shooting? Like, I'm not sure. I'm guessing men are probably better at that too. And I'm not acting like, oh, men are so special, women are so great. People are good at different things. Like, I'm not a skeet shooter and I'm not a, you know, professional basketball player. I'm good, but not pro level. But the truth is just the truth. So Neil posing as this like feminist icon or whoever he thinks he is, Squealy, DeGrasse, Bison, Tyson, you know, it's like he's going to take away 99% of the sports opportunities for women. I can't even think of a single sport that women would be able to compete in. Volleyball, no. Water polo, no. Lacrosse, no. Like, I don't think there's a single sport that women would be able to fend for their own on men. He'd be taking away 99% of their opportunities. It's insane. All right, let's move to this next video. I'm just going to play the clip again. He says he's pulling and this is what people don't realize when I was talking about Ye and Tim. Take away what Ye is saying, who Tim is, and take away your emotion of it. I was just talking about when Ye was categorizing people based on their race or religion. And I wasn't mad that Tim didn't like it. But what Tim said was when he was talking to Kanye West or Ye, whatever, you know, he wants to be called Ye, but you get it. Tim was like, oh, I don't categorize, like there should be no categories for people. I don't talk about race. Bro, you say the word white all the time because you know if you say white, no one's scared. White Antifa, white this. We know you're not talking about all white people, but you say it anyway, Tim, because you know that it's easy to do because white people aren't going to freak out at you. But if Tim uses the word that starts with J and ends with Jewish, you know, he knows that there's going to be a lot more backlash. So he has to pretend like he doesn't think that ever you should categorize stuff. I'm not saying you should blame everyone. Why would you? You should be nice to people of every race and religion. I'm just saying Tim was trying to act like categories of people don't exist. So what are the New York Giants? Are they the New York Giants or are they just 30 guys playing on a football field? You know, if you go into like Target and there's is it a Target employee or is it just a person wearing a red shirt? It's a person wearing a red shirt, but the reason humans categorize things in every aspect of life is just because it makes things slightly easier. And yes, when you categorize things when people are involved, there's going to be times where you're right and wrong. There's going to be what did the robber look like? Do I want to get canceled? Should I say what he looked like? I don't know. He was a guy. Well, what kind of guy was he? I don't want to say. Like, well, was he tall or small? Well, I don't want to be heightist. I don't want to be, you know, I mean, he was just a guy. I mean, I don't want to say guy. Oh my gosh. No. I'm so sorry. I don't know what gender he was. I mean, it looked like, well, wait, no, it can't look like anything. Like, this is the world that we live in. If you can't group things in, like, what was the person that stole the purse? It was just a human. I mean, I think it was the human. It could have been something else. It could have been a Bigfoot. It's like, this is the world we have to live in. If people act like Neil and Tim and say that like, oh, categories don't really exist when it's hateful, but they use categories in every aspect of their life. That's all I'm saying. Listen, forget about gender. Listen to how ridiculous this statement is. Neil DeGrasse Tyson is the biggest idiot in the world. If you're listening to this, Squeal, I would destroy you in a debate. You're such a fake, bro. What kind of scientist are you? You can't even tie your shoes and you're acting like you're an astrophysicist. Give me a break. How can I trust you with the planet Pluto if I can't even trust you to tell the truth about categories? My gosh, sorry.
It's a failure of the evolution of our brain wiring to require of things in front of us to fit into categories.
Well, go ahead.
But
it's a failure of your brain wiring to put things into categories. Just think about how like someone should put that on a shirt and it should make 0 sales because no one should ever want to read it. Like, I got to listen to it. Like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. Squeal. You're dumb, dude. You're a dummy. You're a big propagandist dummy. Okay. Nobody likes you anymore. You go on PBD podcasts and everybody's laughing at you because you're such a fake.
It's a failure of the evolution of our brain wiring to require of things in front of us to fit into categories.
Well, go ahead.
But
I listen to Neil deGrasse Tyson. It's a failure of my stupid dumb brain to put things in categories. Well, what is this anomaly? It's a blue hat. Oh, wait, no, I'm a bigot. This is just a thing. What's that on the wall? It's just a thing. What color's that ball? It's not, what's a ball? I mean, that's a failure of my brain function, putting it into a category. It could be a square. I mean, that ball could be a square. I mean, what type of bigot, extremist, right-wing, Trump supporting conservative would want to put things into groups? I mean, I walk into Wegmans and I'm disgusted by all the categories. It's like, oh, whole wheat. Oh, wow, look, we got a bigot. I bet they voted for Trump in 2016. You know, it's like that's the world that he wants to live in. He's just going to be like, dude, he's so full of shit that it's just pouring out of his mouth and he doesn't even know what he's like. He's like so self-righteous. I'm going to play that clip again because this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. This is so dumb. It makes John Fetterman look like Stephen Hawking's. If Stephen Hawking's is even really smart, who knows if he's even doing anything? He could be another puppet too. But anyway, see how they get you? They make you think like, he's like, I know that intergalactic planetary, there's going to be Pluto, and at a certain point we are going to have to go to Mars. And then they like convinced me as a kid that he's smart. Is he even smart? Is he even really saying that? Who knows anymore? You know, Neil deGrasse Tyson's got me questioning everything. Listen to the stupidest thing you're going to hear all week. Categories are a failure of your brain.
it's a failure of the evolution of our brain wiring to require of things in front of us to fit into categories.
Well, go ahead.
But.
Hey, Anomaly, what's in your hand? Is that a harmonica? No. What is it? Is it a music instrument? Don't say a category. You're a racist. This is just my friend. It's a non-binary spaceship, but even that's a category, so I don't want to say anything. Categories, like, and he's saying this as if he's so smart. It's like, dude, you're such an idiot. He's so stupid. In other news, Wayne Brady, who I do like, he came out as pansexual, according to the media. And if you guys don't know what pansexual is, it's when you're so horny that you're just ready to hump a kitchen pan. I'm just kidding. That's not what it is. But I had to look it up because I was like, what the hell is pansexual? And it basically just means bisexual. But I guess when you're like so bisexual that you can't just say you're bisexual, you just have to be like, I'm pansexual. I'd even bang a pen. No, I'm just kidding. That's not what it is. But I think it means you're bisexual, but you're also like into yourself or something. I don't know. Maybe you look in the mirror and just get horny, just like damn, I look good. I'm Wayne Brady. You know, Wayne Brady's like, damn. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how old I am, but I look good. I'm even turned on by myself. I don't know what it means, but apparently, like, people just can't say bisexual anymore. Like, I like this and this. They're like, I'm pansexual. So I just made up my own definition. And it's like, I just think when you're so horny that you can't even identify as like bisexual, you're like, so men and women, you're like, pan, anything. You know, I just think he'd probably at a certain point just hump a kitchen pan if he had to, because you're just so ready to go at any point that it's like, whatever happens, happens. You know what I'm saying? Live and let live. Hey, you know, I like what I like. And it's like, all right, bro, is that a pan in your hand? Is that a kitchen pan in your hand? They're like, no. What's a category? Neil deGrasse told me that categories are racist, so I don't even want to say what's in my hand. This could be anything. It is what it is. I mean, I don't know, man. I wonder if people still listen to Neil deGrasse Tyson and be like, yo, he's making total sense. Even if you say an adult, you know, let loose and just do whatever you want, it still doesn't make any sense with the sports thing, and it still wouldn't make any sense with the category thing. That was like the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. I can't believe he said that with a straight face. And then these morons that are doing the interviews, they just sit there and they're like, "Oh, how do I?" Like, this is why I even got into media. I don't even really. I mean, I do enjoy it sometimes what I'm doing, but it's like I didn't want to do this. I just looked at the media and I was like, you guys are so fake and so stupid and so cringe and so based on fear, and there's like no spirit. So I was like, I'll do it. And I did do it, and I did a better job. But now it's like everybody's so fake. It's so weird. And politics has been such a buzzkill for me, because I used to think it was just people like Shill DeGrasse Tyson, or Squeal DeGrasse Tyson, whatever you want to call him. I used to think it was like, oh, the Democrats are fake and people, propagandists like him are fake. But now I'm starting to realize that a lot of Republicans that I used to like, they're just as fake. I want to give you an example real quick, and maybe people will disagree, but it's just on my mind. And then I'll get back to the Neil thing, because I know that'll be more popular. But I watched somebody's tweet. It was a DC Drano. I don't even follow him, but he pops up in my feed all the time now. I used to, but I had to unfollow. Anyway, he was like, the Capitol event was 99% peaceful, and I have like the stats of it. And I actually agree with him. Like the Capitol was mostly peaceful. Like it is absolutely, like most of the people there weren't doing anything, but some people did, but most people didn't. And there were probably feds there almost definitely trying to set people up or arrest people or whatever. But also some people did stupid crap, but most people didn't. I do agree with that. But in my opinion, it's like saying that the George Floyd riots, even though I think those were worse than the Capitol thing from my view, it's like being, oh, that's mostly peaceful. It's the same thing that's true to that. Like most people at the George Floyd riots weren't rioting. It was a mostly peaceful event. 99% of the people at George Floyd were peaceful, but then the 1% that weren't went crazy. Like that's also true. So I just think it's like both sides are both so fake. Like the left will look at a riot and be like, oh, this is mostly peaceful, like technically, but there's also a fire behind you. And then January 6th, I'm not saying people should be going to prison. I'm not saying it was bad, but like there were people who did stupid crap. So it's like, yeah, it's mostly, the country is mostly peaceful, but then crime also happens. So it's just like, the reason I brought that up is because I feel like the right is just as fake as the left. They're not as bad as Neil deGrasse, but like everything's so fake. People don't really have conviction. They'll do the same thing that they see the other side doing. They'll flip on a dime if this person does this or that. Like, I don't even know if people believe anything anymore. Like if Trump says this, they say this. If Trump says that, they say that. If DeSantis influencers want to do, like everyone's just bouncing around, like fighting with each other, having hypocrites, but or being hypocrites and having double standards. But it's people like Neil deGrasse Tyson that make you feel smart, because no matter how fake you are, you're never going to be as fake as Neil deGrasse Tyson. So that's why a lot of people feel, they feel good, where it's like, I mean, if I just don't say stuff like this, then I'll be considered, much more righteous. It's an easy like moral victory for the right, because you got people like Squeal out here squealing like this.
It's a failure of the evolution of our brain wiring to require of things in front of us to fit into categories.
Well, okay, go ahead.
Dude, the guy's like, dude, I don't know who that guy is, but I tried to look up. I couldn't figure it out. But anyway, it's like, the guy's like, but Neil, and he's like, but, he's like, oh, okay. I'll let, you're Neil deGrasse Tyson. I'll let you talk. Crazy stuff. DeGrasse, the E isn't pronounced. Well, E is a category, A, B, C, D, E. I don't believe in the A, B, C, D, E's. I'm just going to walk around and be like, la, la, la. I'm not even going to use words anymore. Like languages, it's just a category to me. So his name is Neil deGrasse Tyson. I call him DeGrasse, like the, Nickelodeon show or whatever. Because, saying his name right is just a category, in my opinion. It's just another, patriarchal structure. It's like, why? I'm just going to call him moo or bark, let's just make noises when we see Neil. He's like, why are you doing that? You're like, I don't know, dude. Language is so played out, man. Like, what's the point of even talking? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? I know what you're saying. Let's just drop the whole fake words thing, and let's just make sounds. Someone said bop, 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 bop. Exactly. Like, that's his new name. I don't want to pronounce this name right. He can't even admit that men and women have different levels of sports. Like, I want to watch the first clip again. The guy's trying to be like, dude, you know, Neil. We all know that you know. We know that you know. You know that we know that you know. We all know. Let's stop playing games here, bro. He tries to act like as a high school or college wrestler, like, nah, I don't know.
it is a little weird that we split people by male and female in this way. I'm imagining 100 years from now looking back and say, do you know, back 100 years ago, they split boys and girls and they couldn't compete. And I was like, that'd just be kind of a little weird.
I don't know, Neil, because
I can imagine thinking how weird that is.
I can imagine that too. But the differences are so massive. On average, again, I've seen the pictures of you as a college wrestler.
Listen to me.
But the average woman is not going to be able to take... The average woman wrestler is not going to...
He's really going to just sit there and act like he doesn't know. It's truly unbelievable. Someone said, who got to him? He's been got to for years now. I mean, Neil deGrasse's been a fake for at least a decade. I mean, you know, everyone has a moment where they figured it out. I used to like him. I used to buy into all that stuff. You know, that's how I could have that perspective. Like when I was young, like, oh, I thought Leonardo DiCaprio was saving the planet with the United Nations. I thought Neil Bison Tyson or Shill deGrasse Tyson or Squeal deGrasse Tyson. I thought he was like going to save the world with the stars. You know, they got me with the cosmos. I believed all that stuff. And then you just see through it once and then it all fades away. Like Shill Nye, the spy guy or whatever. What's his name? Bill Nye, the science guy. They're all like, you know, well, maybe we should sing songs about gender not existing. And it's like, are you doing this based on your own free will? I don't know what they're doing or who they work for, or if they like, I don't know what it is, but if I had to guess, I would think that they're both being puppeted by some entity, you know, what, who, where, why, I don't know, but it just seems pretty like random. Like this astrophysicist, he's going to run around and pretend like he doesn't, like I'm a feminist, LGBTQ plus icon, or like whatever he pretends to be, like, oh, I'm doing this for the people, for the LGBTQ. Who's going to lose, bro? I don't care. And I'm not being mean. I'm sorry if like women athletes are watching this. I like a lot of women athletes. I'm friends with some. It's just like, you're not going to ruin my life by taking away like women's sports. I don't really care. In fact, I think there needs to be a conversation around it of some point, not completely dismiss of it, but it's like, you know, if there's a female cop and a male cop, in my opinion, I want them to do the same physical thing. If there's men, you know, if men are better at every single sport, if men are better at like, you know, all these physical things, why would I believe that a woman would do as good of a job on average as a man? I don't think they would. But if a woman is in that position, then I think she should pass all the tests a man can. And there's some fatty police as well that I don't know how they're passing any test because they look like out of shape. But you get what I'm saying. I'm not knocking it. It's just, I am a very merit-based person. I think that the pilots should be the best pilots. I don't think you should just hire a diversity hire for a pilot. I think that's insane. Like the fact that they're even thinking about doing this is absolutely nuts. It doesn't even exist in most sports. In basketball, they just pick the best people. Why? Because it diverses itself out. Sometimes Nikola Jokic, he's white. He's the best player in the NBA. Sometimes it's someone else. You know, that's just how it works. You just get the best players, the fighters. They don't need a diversity hire in the UFC. It's like if you're good enough, you fight. If you win enough, you keep winning. It doesn't matter if you're from Uzbekistan, Russia, or Japan. Like if you're the best, you're the best. Why are we doing this on every scale? I mean, I know everybody on my channel already knows this stuff. I'm preaching to the choir, but like this stuff's got to end. I know that the Supreme Court ruled on it and I don't, you know, it is what it is, but it's like, can we stop pretending for now? We could talk, be like, if you don't think women should play sports, then just say that, Neil. But if you're going to act like I think it's going to go away and it's going to seem crazy, it's going to be women losing out. And maybe that's okay. And maybe it's not. I don't know, but there needs to be a conversation. Do we want women and men's sports to be split 50-50? Do we want to pretend like we don't know the difference? It's just like getting so cringe and so fake. I don't know how long this is going to work. I really don't. And I'll say this again before I leave. Politically, I think this is the winning issue for conservatives. I really do. I think it's the one that, and I know people don't want to hear this, but I want to wake some people up. If Trump leaned into stuff like this, I feel like he could easily beat Joe Biden, but everything's always about him all the time, always. You know what I'm saying? I know he's going through court cases and he's using that to his advantage because it's going to help him win the primary. Basically, that's like the only reason he's winning the primary. I don't think it would be this far away if he wins by this much if that didn't happen. So he's using this victim narrative. They're coming for me. They're coming for me. Bro, at a certain point, like, what are you going to do though? Are you speaking about the things that everybody realizes? Like, I think 80 to 90% of the population realizes that women's and men's sports are different. I really do. I think that's a massive winning issue. And I know Trump talks about it. It's not like he doesn't talk about it at all. But I feel like this is like the moment, this next election. If the pendulum doesn't swing back in the direction of sanity, I think we could potentially lose every election for the next 20, 30 years. And as much as they say it's like this conspiracy theory that's racist and you can't talk about it, if you look, they're bragging on all the media this week that the white people are going to be the minority in America by 2040, because the new generation for the first time is non-white, or mostly not white for the first time in history. Here's all I'm going to say. I know they say it's this racist whatever conspiracy theory, but if you look at demographic voting patterns, they know, the Democratic Party knows. They know which gender votes for them more than the other gender. They know which religion doesn't vote for them and which religion does. And they know racially, they have all the demographic statistics. So they know this stuff. They say it publicly all the time. They'll be like, well, this is what we're doing in Texas. This is what we're doing here. So they're playing the long game with that because they understand that for whatever reason, their pitch to certain groups works better than their pitch to other groups, whether it's real or not. I feel like this next election, I really think that if Republicans squander it and they blow it, they might never win an election again unless they can like come together and figure out a platform that works for other people. But that's the future of the country. Like, it just is, whether people want to admit it or not, or they think it's racist or not. It's like, no one's going to care what you thought about it 15 years ago if that's the mathematics scientific equation of where the future of the country is going. And they have it down to a science. Men vote more Republican on average. That's a fact. Women vote way more liberal on average. That's a fact. Christians vote more Republican on average. That's a fact. Other groups vote the other way. Some do, some don't. There's, Hispanics are starting to vote more Republican now. That's why there's this huge media and activist group smear against Hispanics and white Hispanics or whatever, because they realize that this is a large demographic that's growing quickly, that they don't have a direct control over, that it's not like, a lot of Hispanic countries, albeit, they might have different opinions. Usually outside of American politics and the racial politics, they're usually more like family oriented, more conservative, socially. So I think that the Democrats are playing like a long game with all this stuff. And Republicans just say, oh, it doesn't matter, we don't care. And it's like, I get what you're saying. Like, on a personal level, you don't have to care, but it's like funding the Democrats with trillions of dollars, giving them money to do mass mail-in ballots. And then they do mass mail-in ballots. And then you're like, oh, I didn't see that coming. It's like, why didn't you see it coming? You gave them that money. They're starting to point it out on the media because DeSantis is starting to say it. He's starting to say Trump funded the Democrats and gave them the rights to do the mass mail-in ballot scheme in the CARES Act. That's the truth. That's real. Read it, look it up. But people are like, no. And it's like, yes, I'm not saying but this is the game Republicans play. They're always 50 steps behind. The Democrats are plotting all this stuff. They're doing all this stuff purposely. And Republicans are just like, I don't care. And then they get the results that they deserve because they fail in 100 ways. And then they're like, we're the victims. They're not after me. They're after you. It's like the party of no accountability. They're just grifting, slowly grifting until, that's how I see it, at least. So I'm a little off topic here, but I think it's more interesting sometimes than some of the other stuff, tying it all together. That's just my opinion. Let's see what you think. Let me know in the comment section. I personally believe, outside of all of that demographic stuff, that this gender stuff is not popular. It's just not. If they said, I want to do this sexually on my own terms, I don't think most people would care. Now that they're going to the kids, the sports, they're just like saying that like categories don't exist. I think that 80 to 90% of people in this country don't agree with the Neil deGrasse Tysons on this topic. I think it's wildly unpopular. It's not popular in sports. And if Republicans just act human and they act like people that actually aren't politicians and want to get people on their side, I think this is the election to do it. I think that the left has gone so far and so weird with this stuff. That's just my opinion. I'm not a political strategist, but if you lead with that sort of stuff, I do believe that people will come around to it if you can package it right and just sound authentic with it. But who knows? Maybe it's a good idea to just like fight over random stuff, and who knows? I don't know. At the end of the day, when it comes to the 2024 election, there's going to be two people on the ballot or more, but only two are going to really matter. And it's going to be this guy or that guy. So everybody's going to be faced with this option of like, do I vote for this guy or that guy? And the election's probably going to be won in a few states. The election's probably going to be won in 20,000 votes. And the election's probably going to be won based on like one last second topic that kind of shifts the general population. So I hope that Republicans don't cut it close, because I don't know where the future of the Neil deGrasse Tysons are going to go. Like this, how long can they play this game for? Even if they're the nicest people with the nicest thoughts, and they're so loving and stuff. Like, how long do they think they're going to be able to lie about stuff like this? Just to wrap it up, I don't really care because I'm not a female college athlete, but a lot of people do care, for the sake of this conversation. And if Neil deGrasse Tyson really believes that sports don't matter and there's no difference between the physical abilities of the average man and the woman, by acting that way, he's going to erase 99% of women's sports. So, like, if that's who Neil is, this is the framing that we need to start framing this stuff in, because it's true. I mean, it's just obvious. So, and then when it comes to, I guess, like, categories, he said categories are just like a brain malfunction. Like we're just malfunction. It's like, bro, categories is human intelligence. The fact that we're able to build things great. Like, what do you think a building is? It's a bunch of pattern. It's pattern recognition. You put it together and you build it. And if you don't have pattern recognition, you don't have categories. If you don't separate the steel from the screws and the machines from these machines, then we're just like animals. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're not the intelligent species that we've become. We need categories. And then on that note of him just saying that, like, if he wants to be a woman one day or whatever, and he doesn't understand why people even care because of pursuit of happiness, you're not just saying that, dude. Just to stay consistent with what you're saying, you're not running around media saying, I want to be a woman and go bang whoever I want at a nightclub. If you were just saying that, it would be a whole different conversation that we could talk about, because I don't really care what Neil deGrasse Tyson does. It doesn't really interest me. But in general, he's trying to frame it as if that's all he's talking about. He's like, I want to dress up as a woman, and what if I want to do this? Why do you care? Bro, that's not at all what you're saying. You're talking about sports. You're talking about categories being like, a human malfunction, a brain malfunction. You're talking about in 50, 100 years that it's going to be crazy that we ever segregated sports. Like, that's what you're talking about. So don't let this little slippery snake get off the hook of being like, I'm just talking about me putting on lipstick. No, you're not, dude. If you were talking about that, then I would have a conversation about that if he wanted to, or I probably wouldn't even cover it because I wouldn't care. But the fact that he's trying to frame it as if that's all he's talking about, that's not true, dude. I really think this is a winnable issue. I think even people that are super liberal can be like, well, yeah, I don't want to erase 99% of sports. I think the average person doesn't believe all this stuff. I think there's going to be more Neo situations where Neo is like, I'm not going to pretend like this is real because I don't believe that. Most people don't believe it. Most people in Mexico don't believe it. Most people in South America don't believe it. Most people in America don't believe this stuff. Most people in Africa certainly don't believe this stuff. They're so conservative in Africa that Ted Cruz has a stick up his ass and he wants to run over to Uganda to spread sodomy or something. Like, that's how conservative Africa is. They're going so conservative that even Ted Cruz, the liberal, wants to run over there and give them like pride flags or something, because he's like crying that, like, God forbid Africa is not as gay as the countries that America invades and tries to spread. It's like, that's literally like the purpose of the Republican Party. They're just like controlled opposition to let America slowly crumble. And as soon as you realize that it's destroyed, they're going to run away like little minions from a freaking Despicable Me, with all the money that they raised off the stupid speeches they gave. And nobody even cares. They're like, oh, well, he says things. But it's like, it's like, why is that his, why is he so concerned about Africa? It's like, if America starts a war in Africa, they don't even care about Africa. America could start 7 wars and they don't say anything. But the moment that they like take a hardline stance against like liberalism, like way harder than America would ever do, Now Ted Cruz has a problem. Not when we're regime changing Libya, but now it's too far. It's like that's the Republican Party. They're the B side to the A side. Like the Democrats do all this stuff to you. Republicans fund them. Republicans help them. Republicans are friends with them. And then when it comes time to actually like realizing it, the Republicans are like just there to like pretend, like to stand in your way basically. So no one smart or honest actually does anything and just like put on a little clown show. But yeah, I think the left has gone too far. And I think that people realize it. So that's my take. It is what it is. Every one of my opinions at this point is controversial. Like even my opinions about Trump and the Republican Party, I can't say anything anymore. So at this point, I just don't even care because it's like up is up. That's controversial. Down is down. That's controversial. Like left is left. Oh, that's crazy. That's bigot. It's like, you know, you say the truth about what Trump's doing and people are like, oh, that's hate. I hate that. That's hate speech. You're a hater. It's like, oh, so hate. Now the right thinks it's hate speech. But if that guy did it, it wouldn't be. Whatever. Let me know what you think. Do you think that in 100 years we'll be laughing about segregating women's and men's sports? Are you okay with destroying 99% of women's sports leagues because allowing men to compete against women and just abolishing the thought of them separating? Do you think that's a good idea? Do you think that's a bad idea? I'm sure there's some women in here that play sports or fathers and mothers that have daughters that play sports. I'm sure that they don't like that stuff because especially if you're into the sports your women are playing or your kids are playing or your daughters are playing, why would you want Squeal DeGrasse Tyson to come through and act like there's no reason for it? It's just crazy that these people are able to frame themselves as like the icons of the people. It's like who's going to benefit from that? I don't know. Maybe corporations will save more money. Maybe I don't know. Men will like win. Like I don't even know. Appreciate you guys. God bless you guys. This has been the Dream Rare Podcast. Have a beautiful week, and I'll be back with more videos soon. Check out the link in the bio. I have a free email list. I'm going to send one out today or tomorrow. I'm looking for a few things. So products to sell in my thing or sponsorships. I usually don't reach out. I only to intake, but I'm going to try a different strategy since, you know, use what I have and try to build my own stuff. I've come to the conclusion maybe someone will want to work with me at a certain point, but if not, I'm just trying to build my own stuff and secure my own foundation because if I don't, you know, things change, things evolve, social media evolves, time flies. And, you know, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to try to do it right. So always looking for the right companies to work with if our values align, etc. Thank you guys. God bless. Have a beautiful day. I'll share more of that later. Streamrare.com. We're doing a lot of good articles over there. Check it out. STREAMRARE, streamrare.com. That's my news website. Dreamrare.com. That's my hat website. You could pick up a hat, or as Neil deGrasse Tyson calls it, just the particles. These are just particles that exist in the metasphere, but I don't even see a single category because categories are a human brain malfunction. But to those who aren't Squeal DeGrasse Tysons, it's a hat. It's a blue hat, light blue.